Charlie Pollard and the Beekeepers, from Notebooks, June 1962. June 7th. The midwife stopped up to see Ted at noon to remind him that the Devon Beekeepers were having a meeting at 6 at Charlie Pollard's. We were interested in starting a hive, so dumped the babies in bed and jumped in the car and dashed down the hill past the old factory to Mill Lane, a row of pale orange stucco cottages on the Taw, which gets flooded whenever the river rises. We drove into the dusty, ugly paved parking lot under the gray peaks of the factory buildings, unused since 1928, and now only used for wool storage. We felt very new and shy, I hugging my bare arms in the cool of the evening, for I had not thought to bring a sweater. We crossed the little bridge to the yard where a group of miscellaneous Devonians were standing, an assortment of shapeless men in brown speckled bulgy tweeds, Mr. Pollard in white shirt sleeves, with his dark, nice brown eyes and oddly Jewy head. Tan, balding, dark-haired. I saw two women, one very large, tall, stout, in a glistening aqua blue raincoat, the other cadaverous as a librarian in a dun raincoat. Mr. Pollard glided toward us and stood for a moment on the bridge end, talking. He indicated a pile of hives like white and green blocks of wood with little gables and said we could have one if we would like to fix it up. A small pale blue car pulled into the yard. The midwife, her moony beam, came at us through the windshield. Then the rector came pontificating across the bridge, and there was a silence that grew round him. He carried a curious contraption, a dark felt hat with a screen box built on under it, and cloth for a neckpiece under that. I thought the hat a clerical beekeeping hat, and that he must have made it for himself. Then I saw on the grass and in hands everybody was holding a bee hat, some with netting of nylon, most with box screening, some with khaki round hats. I felt barer and barer. People became concerned. Have you no hat? Have you no coat? Then a dry little woman came up, Mrs. P., the secretary of the society, with tired, short blonde hair. I have a boiler suit. She went to her car and came back with a small white silk button-down smock, the sort pharmacists' assistants use. I put it on and buttoned it and felt more protected. Last year, said the midwife, Charlie Pollard's bees were bad-tempered and made everybody run. Everyone seemed to be waiting for someone. But then we all slowly filed after Charlie Pollard to his beehives. We threaded our way through neatly weeded allotment gardens, one with bits of tinfoil and a fan of black and white feathers on a string, very decorative, to scare the birds, and twiggy lean toss over the plants. Black-eyed sweet pea-like blossoms, broad beans, somebody said, the gray ugly backs of the factory. Then we came to a clearing, roughly sithed, with one hive, a double brood hive, 2 layers. From this hive, Charlie Pollard wanted to make 3 hives. I understood very little. The men gathered round the hive. Charlie Pollard started squirting smoke from a little funnel with a hand bellows attached to it round the entry at the bottom of the hive. Too much smoke, hissed the large, blue rain-coated woman next to me. What do you do if they sting? I whispered, as the bees, now Charlie had lifted the top of the hive, were zinging out and dancing round us as the end of long elastics. Charlie had produced a fashionable white straw Italian hat for me with a black nylon veil that collapsed perilously into my face in the least wind. The rector had tucked it into my collar, much to my surprise. Bees always crawl up, never down, he said. I had drawn it down loose over my shoulders. The woman said, stand behind me, I'll protect you. I did. I had spoken to her husband earlier, a handsome, rather sarcastic man standing apart. Silver hair, a military blue eye, plaid tie, checked shirt, plaid vest, all different. Tweedy suit, navy blue beret. His wife, he had said, kept 12 hives and was the expert. The bees always stung him, his nose and lips, his wife later said. The men were lifting out rectangular yellow slides, crusted with bees, crawling, swarming. I felt prickles all over me and itches. I had one pocket and was advised to keep my hands in this and not move. See all the bees round the rector's dark trousers? Whispered the woman. They don't seem to like white. I was grateful for my white smock. The rector was somehow an odd man out, referred to now and then by Charlie jestingly. Hey, rector! Maybe they want to join his church. One man, emboldened by the anonymity of the hats, suggested. The donning of the hats had been an odd ceremony, their ugliness and anonymity very compelling, as if we were all party to a rite. They were brown or gray or faded green felt, mostly. But there was one white straw boater with a ribbon. All faces shaded became alike. Commerce became possible with complete strangers. The men were lifting slides, Charlie Pollard squirting smoke into another box. They were looking for queen cells, long, pendulous, honey-colored cells from which the new queens would come. The blue-coated woman pointed them out. She was from British Guiana. British Guiana. Had lived alone in the jungle for 18 years, lost 25 pounds on her first bees there. There had been no honey for them to eat. I was aware of bees buzzing and stalling before my face. The veil seemed hallucinatory. I could not see it for moments at a time. Then I became aware I was in a bone-stiff trance, intolerably tense, and shifted round to where I could see better. Spirit of my dead father, protect me, I arrogantly prayed. A dark, rather nice, unruly-looking man came up through the cut grasses. Everyone turned, murmured, "Oh, Mr. Jenner, we didn't think you were coming." This, then, the awaited expert, the government man from Exeter. An hour late, he donned a white bowler suit and a very expert bee hat, a vivid green dome, square black screen box for head, joined with yellow cloth at the corners and a white neckpiece. The men muttered, told what had to be done. They began looking for the old queen. Slide after slide was lifted, examined on both sides, to no avail. Myriads of crawling, creeping bees, as I understood it from my blue bee lady. The first new queen out would kill the old ones, so the new queen cells were moved to different hives. The old queen would be left in hers, but they couldn't find her. Usually the old queen swarmed before the new queen hatched. This was to prevent swarming. I heard words like supersede, queen excluder, a slatted screen of metal only workers could crawl through. The rector slipped away unnoticed. Then the midwife, who used too much smoke, was the general criticism of Charlie Pollard. The queen hates smoke. She might have swarmed earlier. She might be hiding. She was not marked. It grew later, 8:30. The hives were parceled up. Queen excluders put on. An old beamy brown man wisely jutted a forefinger as we left. "She's in that one." The beekeepers clustered around Mr. Jenner with questions. The secretary sold chances for a bee festival. Friday, June 8th. Ted and I drove down to Charlie Pollard's about 9 tonight to collect our hive. He was standing at the door of his cottage in Mill Lane, the corner one, in white shirt sleeves, collar open, showing dark chest hairs and a white mail net undershirt. His pretty blonde wife smiled and waved. We went over the bridge to the shed and its rotavator, orange, resting at the end. Talked of floods, fish, Ash Ridge. The Taw flooded his place over and over. He was wanting to move up, had an eye on the lodge at Ash Ridge, had hives up there. His father-in-law had been head gardener when they had had 6 gardeners. Told of great heaters to dry hay artificially and turn it to meal. 2,000, 4,000 the machines cost were lying up there now, hardly used. He hadn't been able to get any more flood insurance once he had claimed. Had his rugs cleaned, but they were flat. "You can live with them, I can't," he told the inspector. Had to have the upholstered sofa and chairs all redone at the bottom. Walked down the first step from the second floor one night and put his foot in the water. A big salmon inhabited his reach of the Taw. "To be honest with you," he said over and over. "To be honest with you." Showed us his big Barney black offices. A honey ripener with a beautiful sweet-smelling slow gold slosh of honey at the bottom. Loaned us a bee book. We loaded with our creaky old wood hive. He said if we cleaned it and painted it over Whitsun, he'd order a swarm of docile bees. Had showed us his beautiful red gold Italian queen the day before with her glossy green mark on the thorax, I think. He had made it. To see her the better. The bees were bad-tempered, though. She would lay a lot of docile bees. We said, "Docile, be sure now," and drove home. These few lines were typed at the top margin of the original manuscript. Noticed a surround of tall white cow parsley, Percy yellow gorse bloom, an old Christmas tree, white hawthorn, strong smelling.